Jnana Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was originally thinking to just express some questions I had and take the opportunity of Vidvans and Swamiji to receive answers to some questions. So I might make a few of those in the course of speaking. Otherwise, I'm going to speak something about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and yoga in general, and also seek Swamiji's views on some of the subjects that are raised. Okay. So very generally, the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali in the first book, the Samadhi Pada, begins with the definition of yoga, which is yoga-chitta-vritti nirodha. Yoga in the Patanjali system means stopping the mind, stopping the chitta-vrittis, the activities of the mind. And the commentators here are very interesting. We have three big commentators. The Vyasa Bhashya, the book is called Sankhya Pravachana Bhashya. It's supposed to be by one Vyasa. Of course, opinions vary as to who this Vyasa was. Some of the later commentaries think that this is Badarayana, but others are very doubtful about that. And then we have a commentary by Vachaspati Mishra in sometime after Shankara, maybe 9th century or so. And then we have a commentary by Vijnana Bhikshu in like about 16th century. And then we have Bhojaraja, we have a number of commentaries. So I'll refer a little to this commentary, this Sankhya Pravachana Bhashya of Vyasa. Anyways, in the first sutra, he's beginning his definition of yoga, yoga-chitta-vritti nirodha. And what is yoga? Yoga samadhi. He said yoga is samadhi. And what does he mean there? Well, of course, the word yoga is derivable from two roots. Yuj meaning the yoga or sang-yoga, combining, or yoga meaning samadha, in the sense of intense concentration, intense meditation. And when we have of course the yoga, the term can mean many things in the Gita. Sometimes it means upaya, or means, it can mean combining. But here in the Yoga Sutra, it seems to be quite different. It seems to be just a concentration. And one later commentator on the Gita makes the note that in contrast to the Gita, where the yoga is uniting or connecting, rather the yoga in the Yoga Sutra is really dividing. rather than connecting, it's dividing. Because the samadhi that it talks about, the intense concentration, develops into viveka, the discrimination. That discrimination is refined, making more and more refined distinctions, until finally one can distinguish between Purusha and Prakriti. So actually the yoga, the samadhi in the Yoga Sutra is kind of dividing rather than uniting. And so yoga as the stopping of the chitta-vritti. Now some of the problems with the Yoga Sutra are that nowhere in the sutra does Panini define what the chitta is. And nowhere in the sutras does he define what the vrittis are. He has a list of vrittis, the 5 vrittis: pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti, 5 vrittis, but he doesn't define what actually a vritti is in itself. And chitta also is a term which is not defined. Of course, in Vedanta we have a number of terms for functions of the mind. We have manas, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta also. If we look in the Bhagavata, in the Tritiya Skanda of the Bhagavata, in the Kapilopadesh, we have the 4 terms, and we have there a verse which says the antaratmakam, the inner instrument is divided into given four terms according to its function. According to its function. But here in Patanjali, he's only using the word chitta, and we can understand perhaps that by the word chitta, he means all the functions of the mind. Because when the chitta vritti are stopped, there's no activity. So by chitta we can take it, he means everything, including everything in this suitcase word, chitta. And then we have a funny sutra, the third sutra that that explains what happens when the chitta vritti are stopped. And of course, this is a good, we require an answer to this, as some commentator comments after the first sutra that, okay, I understand you're stopping the mind, but if you're stopping the mind, what is the result? What's the result from stopping the mind? And not stopping for some short time or an hour or days, but stopping the mind permanently, what is the result? So it's a good question. And Patanjali in the third sutra, he says, Tada drashtu swarupeva sthanam. Tada, at the time of stopping, the chitta vritti, at that time the seer, the observer, remains in his own swarupa, swarupeva sthanam. Of course, we're reminded in the Bhagavata also, in the Dvitiya Skanda, in the 10th chapter, we have a definition of mukti. Muktir hidvan yata rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. You find this in the Bhagavata, very, very like the sutra from the Patanjali. Muktir hidvan yata rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. That mukti is defined as being situated in one's own swarupa. And then we have the opposite case when the chitta vrittis are not controlled, when they're not stopped. What happens? One becomes identified with the activities of the mind. Okay, well, this is kind of a background. And then Patanjali gives the list of the chitta vrittis. We have pramana, viparya. We have a correct knowledge derived through various means, through our sensory perception, through inference, through shabda, through revealed sources. We have wrong knowledge, we have imagination, we have sleep or dream, and we have memory. We have all different kinds of functions of the mind. And then comes one sutra which I really want to talk about. Sutra number 12. In the first book of the Yoga Sutra. Vairagyabhyam, abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. The chitta vritti, the stopping, the nirodha of the chitta vritti is brought about by two means. Two means are number one, abhyasa, or practice, and number two, vairagya, or, of course we have many different translations for the term vairagya. I prefer the term dispassion. Because we have the vairagya made of course, from raga, passion, without vairagya, dispassion. Very interesting sutra. The goal of the yoga, of course, in the Yoga Sutra we find many, many different kinds of means, right? We have the 5 yamas, we have the 5 niyamas, we have asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. We have a number of different instruments that kind of form a ladder to get up to the end of yoga. But here in the first book, the primary means for achieving the goal of yoga are two: practice plus vairagya. Now what is practice? Practice is just a general term for practicing all of the different angas of yoga. So easily to be understood. Patanjali gives two sutras which kind of give a quality that is required for the practice. He says the practice must be stitau yatna abhyasa, tatra stitau yatno abhyasa. That our practice is what? It is yatna, or effort, towards the goal of sthiti, of stability of the mind. And the commentators here say that this yatna, what's implied here is a kind of utsaha, a kind of enthusiasm in the practice. Okay? So in this sutra, Patanjali gives, some people complain here, Adunika wrote, not old commentators, but modern people say, well, look, if you want to get to a place where in the end there is no activity, then how can you possibly reach that goal by applying effort? Effort has to be thrown out. But Patanjali doesn't say that. You see, right in the sutra, it's tatra stitau yatno abhyasaha. Abhyasa is yatna, a kind of effort. And that effort has, as its kind of inner oil, you might say, gasoline kind of impelling, we have some enthusiasm. And the enthusiasm directed towards the goal. What the sutra seems to suggest is that if you don't have that goal in mind, then your practice is not really practice. You know, in the path of yoga or spirituality, it's very easy to veer off the path in different ways. We have a kind of gross temptations and gross kinds of deviations. We also have very subtle deviations from the path. So it's important to keep the goal in mind. So for the goal for Patanjali is a stability of the mind. And next he says that practice, another three characteristics. Satu dirgha kala nairantaya satkara sevito dridabhumihi. That one's practice becomes firmly grounded. Dridabhumihi. Firmly grounded when it is committed to dirgha kala for a long time, with nairantaya, with continuity, satkara sevita, and it is served with a kind of devotion, a kind of welcome in the practice. Next we have two sutras which describe this vairagya. It's a kind of a strange bedfellow for practice. You know, when people do yoga and practice is very satisfying, whether they're doing just physical asanas or they're doing some kind of pranayama, or they're practicing the ethical observances of yoga, life seems to go well. You know, the physical body feels good, pranas are circulating, the diet is moderate, sattvic. So sometimes someone might ask, well, you know, my yoga practice is going okay, I'm happier. Why are you putting this, I have to combine it with this thing called vairagya? Can't I just go home and just have a sleep on a soft bed? Do you want me to sleep on a board? You want me to use a brick for a pillow? What's this vairagya? Can't I just eat some delicious food? Why do you make me cut down and fast and do upavasa and these other things? Why? So vairagya is a strange. This vairagya and the abhyasa working together. Now abhyasa has two sutras on the vairagya. He has two forms of vairagya, the apara vairagya and the para vairagya, the lower vairagya and the higher vairagya. One sutra for lower. Drishtanu shravika vishaya vitrishnasya vashikara samya vairagyam. Vairagyam is a kind of vashikara, a kind of control that one has. So some people translate this as self-mastery, self-control. Self-control of someone who is vitrishnasya. Who has given up the trishna, vitrishnasya, of someone who's given up trishna, for what? For the vishayas, for the sense objects. And two kinds of sense objects, drishta and anushravika. Drishta, those kind of things which we have experience of. And those kinds of things which are anushravika, not seen, but just heard about. Okay? Two kinds. Those things we've had some experience of, those things we haven't seen but we've heard about. Now, which kind of sense objects are harder to get rid of? It's those we've experienced, those which are drishta. And I give the example and say, look, when we were young boys had little trucks, and going with their little trucks, and girls have dolls. When the boy reaches 16, bring him the little truck, see how excited he gets. He's not excited. He's seen it. He's had experience of it. It's no longer, he has no trishna for that any longer. As they say in American kind of slang, been there, done that. Okay? So for the things which we've experienced, it's easier to have a kind of a blasé attitude towards them. But those vishayas, which we've heard about, which we still treasure in our minds, and whether you're looking through the travel magazine, you see a beautiful scene on the beach, and the water looks so nice in Bahamas, right? And the fronds of the trees are blowing in the wind, and you think, wow, next year, Bahamas. That's where I want to go. So we haven't seen it, we haven't experienced it, we have some information about it, we've heard about it, or seen pictures of it. The commentators here say that the drishta, of course this is the old-fashioned traditional view, that the drishta refers to the objects of this world, whereas the adrishta, the anusharika, are those of the svarga, or the heavenly loka. So whether we're thinking of it in that way, or just things here which we've seen or not seen. So one who becomes the Trishna of these things, and then he gets mastery over his senses. This is a kind of lower form of vairagya. Now the second kind of vairagya is the higher type of vairagya is described in one sutra. Tatparam purushakyate gunavaitrishyam. That higher vairagya, that tatparam vairagyam, is a gunavaitrishyam. It's vitrishna, it's a lack of taste, a lack of interest in the gunas. Sattva, rajas, tamas, the gunas of Prakriti themselves. Purushakyate, because of some sort of experience of the Purusha, experience of spirit. So Prakriti, the material nature, is nothing but gunas. And one can only lay aside the Prakriti from a positive experience of the other, of Purusha. When there's some glimpse of Purusha, Prakriti, attraction for Prakriti falls away. The first type of vairagya is a kind of negative process, a kind of process of withdrawing one's senses from the objects of the senses. The higher kind of vairagya is a positive. You get a positive spiritual experience of some degree or other, and automatically the interest in the matter drops away. The first kind of vairagya is a withdrawing from particular individual vishayas, which we have experienced or not experienced. The second kind of vairagya is a disinterest in the entire gunas themselves, not particulars, but in the whole shebang, the whole thing. So vairagya, very interesting. Now we don't have much mention of vairagya elsewhere in it. Except that these are the two primary. Now a question arises here, you see, as I expressed a little before, the question about why we need these two things. Why isn't just practice good enough? Why do you need vairagya? And the commentator Vyasa addresses himself to this question in the first sutra, where there's this sutra number 12. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. Why the two? And he answers in a kind of oblique manner. He says actually the chitta is like a river. But the chitta is like a river that flows in two directions. He uses the term chitta nadi. And the chitta nadi is upayavahi. It flows in both directions. So rivers don't flow in two directions. They only flow in one, except the Hudson River. You know the Hudson River. Native Americans' name for the Hudson River means river that goes in two directions, right? And if you get out there, if you're in a canoe, I was out in there a few years ago in a canoe with some friends whose canoe it was. And when you're out there in the Hudson, all of a sudden, the current is going this way, the current is going that way. You have to really paddle fast, otherwise you get carried off here, you get carried off there. Very interesting. But generally rivers flow in one direction. The chitta, however, flows in two. One direction is going through non-discrimination, aviveka. The chitta vrittis, the mind, is flowing down through the senses, out towards the sense objects, and then over the edge, and scattering of the attention, scattering of the energy. The Chitta Nadi also can flow upwards. It can flow along the path of Viveka, discrimination, up towards the goal of yoga, which in this case, of course, it is Kaivalyam. This is how Vyasa speaks here. The vocabulary flows towards the goal of yoga or Kaivalyam. So why do we need two means? Not only Abhyasa, but Vairagya. Vyasa says that we need the Vairagya is a check against the flow of the river of the mind down through the senses to sense objects. The Vairagya is checking that flow, and Abhyasa, the real use of Abhyasa, the fact is it opens up our consciousness to flow up along the path of Viveka towards the goal. Okay, so two are necessary. A very nice explanation. That was the basic thing I wanted to talk about, and raise some questions about Vairagya also. Now, Patanjali doesn't actually say in the sutra how Vairagya is to be originated. Of course, the second Vairagya is coming from some sort of realization of the Purusha, of the spirit, the Atma, however you want to. But the lower Vairagya, how do you cultivate it? Say you haven't had that experience yet, then how are you going to be? Now it's interesting, I was just reading in Ishopanishad, in Jayatirtha's commentary on the second verse of that Ishavasya Upanishad. And he is kind of summarizing the first verse, and he says, Krishnavich Jeda Vat Svochita Karmanushtanam Avashitam iti began. Yeah? And I'm always caught by this, with the first words, Krishnavich Jeda Vat Svochita Karmanushtanam Avashitam iti. And his use of vocabulary there with the Trishna. Of course, this Trishna, we have it a lot in Vedanta philosophy. I teach Hinduism and I teach Buddhism also at Rutgers. And of course, Buddha's first realization is the Four Noble Truths. And the first truth is dukkha, there's suffering. And very in line with Yoga Sutra, right? Sarvamidam dukkham, we have in Yoga Sutra, dukkhalayam shashvatam, dukkha. And the second noble truth was the cause of dukkha. Where does it come from? And in the Buddhist, the line of, it's the same as Veda. Originally, the cause of everything is avidya. Avidya, some root ignorance, which in the Pali they call avidya. But in a line of cause of the chain, of causal chain, from the original ignorance up to dukkha, midway there's something called Krishna. Krishna or desire, which they call in Pali tanha. Tanha is the Pali word of Krishna. So I'm just thinking about that, and I wonder if Swami had any words about that. And also, I have some questions from Bhagavatam in the beginning. I love Bhagavatam, Swamiji knows that. And I used to spend a lot of time with Patanjali Govindacharya also talking about Bhagavatam verses. And I'm always interested in this second verse of Bhagavatam. Dharma prochita kaitavotra paramonya matsaranam satam vedyam vastavam vastu shivadam. So in the first part, he's saying that the Dharma that's here in the Bhagavatam is projita kaitava. Projita kaitava. Now kaitava is taken as a kind of a cheating or a deception, misleading, and then whatever kinds of kaitava there are projita. Not only ujjita, uprooted, removed, but projita. Different people have comments about this. Sridhar Swami, the old commentator on the Gita, he says here that prashabdena mokshapi sandirapi nirastaha. Prashabdena, from the Prajita, the Prashabdena, Mokshabi Sandhirapi Nirastaha. Even the desire for moksha should be tyakta. And then a little later in the verse, so this is what question maybe you could say. And later in the verse, you see the same line, Dharma projita kaita votra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. This Bhagavatam is meant for those who are near matsara, those who are non-envious, no matsarya. And I always wondered why, this shloka, this verse, not a shloka, but this verse from Bhagavatam is considered the verse which indicates the adhikari for the study of the Bhagavatam. So you can say something, maybe this is indicated by this Dharma Projita Kaitava, but even more so directly by this Nirmatsaranam. So why here? I mean, there's many kind of indications of adhikar for study of the book, but why Nirmatsara has such a special place? Now some people say that of all the doshas that are possible, Matsarata is at the root. Some people say that. They'll list 5-6 doshas and say Matsarata. But it's interesting why this is here, so maybe Swamiji can say something about it. I had a whole list of questions which I made up, but this is not the place, and I thought maybe Govindacharya would be here, and I had some special questions for him, but anyways. So, Ativistarena, thank you so much.